Ahoy hoy gang, if this is your first time with us, welcome, and if you're joining us from a previous video, hey, we love to see it, and I hope you're doing well. It's Season 5! This is a season full of just really solid Roger episodes. It really feels like the season of Roger, the more I look back on it. It has some of the best episodes you're going to see of the Fox era. It's going to have our triple feature that I've gone into before. And above all else, just some good old-fashioned daddage. So it's time to go live with the top 5 episodes of Season 5. Number 5, Bully for Steve. Ironically, I think this is the only episode in this top 5 that's not a Roger episode. Spoilers, I really like Roger episodes. But Bully for Steve, if I have to imagine this is an episode that is on everyone's top 5. It's probably one of the most known episodes of American Dad, I would say. And it's great. Stan bullies Steve to make Steve stronger. Steve is just a lovable little wuss boy who doesn't want violence until he wants all of the violence. And it's great. Again, it's such perfect pacing for the jokes. I know I said in the last video, but I think Bully for Steve is a perfect example of it. They have lingering jokes, like when the old lady is getting the sliced cheese. That goes on for over 40 seconds. They are betting almost a 23rd of their episode on one joke to pay off, and it is one of the funniest jokes of the episode. Only beaten by the return of Stelio Cantos, the werewolf, that again is a recurring joke, and it is just, they make Langley be more surreal. They don't need to cut away to famous actor doing X because they have a werewolf janitor running off with kids, and that's good enough. They have Francine doing street fights. Like, you have all of these ideas that make the show just that much more surreal on its own without having to artificially inject, crazy wackiness. And Bully for Steve handles everything in just a perfect way. And then, of course, you have the B story where Roger's trying to be a crime scene photographer, and he runs into Captain Carhoonch, or Crunch, as it's called. And it's just, there's so many layers. It's like an onion or an ogre. It just works. Number 4, The Return of the Bling. I'm gonna be real with you guys. You can kind of put any of the next 4 wherever you want on the list, and I think it's fine. They're all tied for first. So yeah, no. And see, even as I'm looking at it, I'm like, this might not be 4. I might actually make this 3. It's gonna be 4 because I'm already done. But The Return of the Bling is one of my favorite Stan Roger Steve adventures. It's a dumb mountain adventure returning a medal because the Miracle on Ice was a sham. And it's just like, okay, never meet your heroes, believe in fake heroes, and you'll never be disappointed. A lot of elements to work with. And then they also just make this globe-trotting epic in 23 minutes. You have Nancy Reagan being hysterical. Like, it's just, there's so many elements that work. There's so few elements that don't. It's just that good. You always get what you want, don't you, Helen? There is so many great jokes. The story is delivered so well. Again, it hangs on Seth MacFarlane and Scott Grimes being able to play off of one another. And I know it sounds like I am just constantly bringing it up, but it really shines in these episodes. It really shows off. And yeah, it means something. The Return of the Bling means something to me, gang. I really love it. It makes me feel whole. It's one of those episodes that I can watch anytime and know everything's gonna be okay. Because of course it is. It's just, Return of the Bling is something special. And like, if you're trying to get someone into American Dad, I think it is a fantastic introduction episode that gives you what Roger does, who Stan is, who Steve is, and while you don't get as much of the rest of the family, it gives you a wonderful story that by the end of it, you're like, all right, put the next episode on. Let's see what they can do. Number 3, Merlot Down Dirty Shame. Lips are for kissing. This is an episode that really only works if you've watched a ton of American Dad, and you've gotten here and you're like, okay, so this is a Stan and Roger actually being friends episode? And then the rest of it happens and he's trying to salvage what he lost. And that's touching in a way. That is special in a way. It's just, yeah, this is an episode that I fell in love with as a fan of like meta comedy, as someone that really loves that awkward, uncomfortable laugh. That's why I love like Tim and Eric or On Cinema at the Cinema so much. This episode reminds me of that Family Guy episode where Brian wins a writing award and takes Lois and he tries to, you know, hit on her, but done better. Because you know it's just Roger being drunk. He does not have feelings for Francine. He just got drunk and kissed her, and now he has to fix the mistake by burying her alive. It's like, what? There's so many extremes, but it's great. You get Stan being really romantic and really loving towards Francine, loving his bud, and okay, I'll peel back the mask. I adore Paul Giamatti. He's one of my absolute favorite actors. He got me into cinema when I was a kid. And so when I saw that Roger was dressed as his character from Sideways, I was just like, oh, I got that reference. I got that reference. And so I was hooked for the whole episode. I was like, oh, they made a Sideways reference. I'm like, oh, you know, looking back, it's like, yeah, that kind of is the one movie you would do. What, isn't it? And it works. Again, if you don't get it, he just looks like some guy. If you do get it, you're like, oh, that's such a neat touch. And it's just, yeah, Merlot Down Dirty Shame is fun. It's weird. It's awkward. That last bit with him in the cat costume is one of my favorite scenes of all time. It's good stuff. Number 2, The Great Space Roaster. Like I said, these can go in any order, and the more I look at these, I feel like these are pretty cemented. Great Space Roaster is another really fantastic season finale. The season finales usually slap not unsubstantially. I'm usually a fan. And Great Space Roaster is a perfect example. You see, it's the family versus Roger after they give him what he wanted. After they roast him at the roast he begged for. You know, you've got great cutaways to like, McGregor, it's Scottish for bullseye. Like, it is so quick and yet well structured that it all feels natural. Like, there's the beginning where they're all trying to escape from Roger, who's trying to enact his revenge. When they fail from getting away from him, they go to space. The second half of the episode happens in space, but it feels natural for it to all of a sudden be an alien parody. That's great. They are smart about how they develop their episodes. And I mean, you also get the Central Human Intelligence Agency that really upset Frank, that poor guy. And it's just, the Great Space Roaster is peak Roger. It is peak everyone getting along, everyone loving each other, the family uniting against a common threat, which we see plenty of later on, and it works on every single level. The only issue being, and this is the minor nitpicks that leave it at number 2 instead of number 1, and that is like, the phone call scene goes for like maybe 3 seconds too long. I don't know what you'd replace it with, but just him walking just goes on for just like 3 steps too long. I don't know how else to explain it. It's always unsettled me just enough. But I really love this episode. The scorpions, it's just good daddage. Number 1, Cops and Roger. I was so tempted to not put this at number 1, but the more I think on it, the more I'm like, yeah, this is what I view as the best episode of the entire season. This is one of the strongest Roger and Stan episodes. This is the best episode of the trilogy. This is high quality Roger. The B story isn't even bad either. It's a really good, Haley and Reggie, will they, won't they? And that was something that they sort of built throughout the season. And ultimately it didn't really go anywhere, and that's fine, but it was still nice to see. I like Reggie. I think Reggie was a fun character, and I would have liked to have seen more of him. I get why they don't use him anymore, but I miss him. I miss him. But just having Roger go corrupt maybe like 6 hours in on the force, that's wonderful. That's absolutely terrific. Him thinking Miranda rights are Sex and the City related. That's on brand. every little bit of it is great. There's just a lot of ongoing jokes that work perfectly. And I know that sounds like I'm padding, and in a lot of ways I am, because the thing that really sells me on the episode, and I know that is going to sound so morbid, but it's the elbow drop. The elbow drop sells me on the entire episode being the best of the season, because it is just so prolonged in the best way. And I love over-the-top violence for the sake of a good joke. You know, excessive violence works when done right. And it's just such a good, like, is he gonna be okay? No. Like, he's looking like one of those stress relief towels that had, like, the eyes and the ears pop out when you squeezed it. And then it just cuts. And that's great. That's wonderful. You got everything you needed out of the episode. Cops and Roger is a perfect episode of American Dad. And there we have it. That's season 5. Anything you think I was right on, wrong on? What are your top 5 episodes of the season? Let me know in the comments below. Honestly, yeah, the Roger triple feature ended up in my top 5, and I knew it was going to. They're 3 of my absolute favorite episodes, and it would be hard for anything to make it into it. But Bully for Steve and Great Space Roaster are both more incredible American Dad good stuff. It's just peak. And remember, all our patrons and members get these episodes first, so if you want to join our growing community, make sure to sign up today and get all those wonderful benefits, as well as getting included on this lovely list. Anyway, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to stay strong, keep fighting, and know I always believe in you. And I'll be back next time for you to get your fix in Season 6.